All right, let's jump straight into this deep dive. We're focusing today on Jeremiah chapter 51.
A really significant chapter.
It really is super intense, very focused, and just leaves no room for doubt about its core message.
Which is?
Well, it's this powerful, sweeping prophecy, isn't it?
Yeah.
Declaring the absolute, certain downfall of Babylon.
Raw.
Total ruin.
And contrasted really sharply with God's vindication for Israel and Judah.
Exactly. So our mission here is to sort of unpack the language, the really vivid imagery, and the consequences laid out right there in the text.
Yeah, absolutely. Jeremiah 51 doesn't really do subtle hints. It's more like a divine verdict being handed down.
A declaration of an inevitable future for what was, a massive empire.
Definitely. And the text uses these striking, often pretty harsh images and specific pronouncements to describe exactly how it's all going to go down. It feels like a judgment pronounced with total authority.
And it gets going immediately, right? The chapter starts, boom, sets the scene for this divine action.
It does. The text says the Lord is actively stirring up a spirit of a destroyer. He's not just predicting it.
He's initiating it.
Right. Sending foreigners, specific outsiders, chosen to winnow her and to devastate her land.
Well, winnowing, that usually means separating grain from chaff.
Right.
Right. But applying it to a whole nation.
It suggests a really violent sifting and scattering, total upheaval, and devastation follows that winnowing.
And the command given to these destroyers.
Yeah.
It's chilling.
It is. Do not spare her army. Do not spare her young men. That's explicit.
So this isn't just about, regime change or taking over territory.
No. It feels more like, well, almost aiming for annihilation, targeting the military core, the future generations. It just underscores the absolute totality of the judgment.
Okay, so why? Why this level of severity? What's the justification given in the text?
The text is quite direct about that. It points squarely at Babylon's sins, their massive guilt before the Holy One of Israel.
And it's not just general wrongdoing.
No, it connects it directly to the terrible wrong they inflicted on Zion, on Jerusalem and its people, their actions against God's chosen place, his people. It's like they built up this debt that the prophecy says has to be repaid.
Before all this judgment, though, Babylon was, the superpower.
Yeah.
And the chapter has that intriguing description.
The gold cup in the Lord's hand.
Yeah, what's that about?
It's a fascinating image, isn't it?
Yeah.
It sort of suggests that Babylon, even with all its pride and wickedness, was paradoxically a tool.
A tool used by God. A valuable one, even gold.
Exactly. But then the description immediately flips, right? It talks about the effect this cup had. She made the whole earth drunk, the text says.
The nations drank her wine, therefore they have now gone mad.
Right. That drunkenness.
It's more than just politics or alliances, isn't it? What does it mean for nations to go mad?
I think it implies something deeper than just political influence or economic control. Babylon's power, its whole worldview, it kind of intoxicated other nations.
Intoxicated them how?
Leading them into maybe forms of madness, perhaps aligning with Babylon's idols or adopting its arrogance, its, violent expansionism. It suggests this moral, maybe spiritual disorientation spreading out from Babylon.
So a tool in God's hand, yes, but also a source of corruption.
Precisely, a source of global corruption for which she's now being held accountable. The stage is set.
And the text just keeps hammering home how certain and severe this fall will be. It happens suddenly.
Yeah, Babylon will suddenly fall and be broken. No slow fade here.
And absolute no chance of recovery.
That's emphasized, too. There's that cry, it sounds like others looking on, saying, we would have healed Babylon, but she cannot be healed. Let us leave her.
Like the damage is just too fundamental.
Exactly. It's terminal. Her judgment isn't temporary. The text uses hyperbole. It reaches to the skies, rises as high as the clouds. No escape, no overcoming it.
And God is specific about who he'll use. It's not just enemies.
No, it names names. The kings of the Medes and other kingdoms like Ararat, Mini, Ashkenaz.
These were real players on the world stage back then.
Absolutely, which adds this layer of historical grounding. It's not just abstract prophecy. It's pointing to actual geopolitical forces who would eventually be involved in Babylon's historical fall.
And the description of their armies. Visceral, isn't it? Sending horses like a swarm of locusts.
Not just an army, but an overwhelming, consuming plague.
Exactly. Vast numbers, utterly destructive, and that image is reinforced by God's own oath.
Yes, he swears it will happen.
He does. I will surely fill you with men as with a swarm of locusts, and they will shout and triumph over you. It's a divine guarantee, total overwhelm, ending with the shouts of the conquerors.
And the aim isn't just defeat. It's stated plainly to destroy Babylon.
And more than that, to lay waste the land so that no one will live there. Total desolation.
An uninhabitable wasteland.
That's the picture. Urban national annihilation. And again, the why comes back. Vengeance for God's temple, for the sacrilege committed there.
Let's really dig into the nature of this destruction. The metaphors are incredibly powerful. Babylon as a destroying mountain. That's a great one. Mountains often symbolized, stability, power, permanence in the ancient world. Babylon certainly saw itself that way.
Towering, unshakable.
Right. But the prophecy says, I will stretch out my hand against you, roll you off the cliffs, and make you a burned-out mountain.
Burned-out mountain. Was that it added? It's more than just broken, right?
Yeah, it suggests like total ruin, sterility, something once mighty reduced to scorched, useless rubble. Final.
And the text says no stone will even be reused from it. Not for a cornerstone, not for a foundation.
Exactly. It won't even be useful as building material. It ceases to matter. Just desolate forever.
And the military defeat itself, it's described almost with a humiliating detail.
It is. The Babylonian warriors stop fighting. They just stay in their forts, strength gone. They become like women.
Which in that context meant total powerlessness, fear.
Precisely. The feared Babylonian army rendered impotent. Their defenses fail, gates broken, river crossings seized, even the marshes they might hide in are on fire. Complete collapse, terrified soldiers.
There's also that image of Babylon as a threshing floor.
Another strong farming metaphor. A threshing floor is where grain gets trampled, beaten.
To separate the good from the waste.
Right. So the image is that Babylon is ripe for this violent judgment, ready to be trampled, broken down, its power destroyed and scattered. A decisive, destructive separation.
And it's not just the physical city or the army. The prophecy goes right for the heart of Babylon's identity, its religion, its idols.
Yes, specifically mentioning Bel, a major Babylonian deity. This is crucial.
It says, Bel will be punished and made to spew out what he has swallowed. With an and spew out.
Well, it could suggest that Bel, or the whole system he represents, had accumulated wealth, maybe tribute, maybe even the captive peoples.
Like Israel.
Possibly. And now he's forced to relinquish it all. The power he seemed to have, the power that drew nations to worship him. The text says his wall will fall, nations stop coming. It's all revealed as hollow.
The idols are dismissed as just worthless, the objects of mockery.
Utterly powerless. No breath, no life. It's an attack on the entire spiritual foundation they believed propped up their empire.
Which then leads into that powerful contrast the text draws.
Between these idols and the true God, yes. He who is the portion of Jacob is not like these, it declares. A total difference.
Who is this God?
The maker of all things. The Lord Almighty is his name. And the text briefly pivots, doesn't it?
To remind us of his power.
Yeah. A quick recap of his creative power making the earth, establishing the world, stretching out the heavens. Then his power in nature, thunder, clouds, lightning, rain, wind.
Why that little detour?
I think it serves to emphasize that the God judging Babylon isn't some local deity like Bel. He's the true, all-powerful creator. His power isn't dependent on anything. It's inherent. He made everything.
And then we get that really striking, almost terrifying image. God using something or someone as his war club.
Yeah, his weapon for battle. That's incredibly impactful. God isn't just directing things. He's depicted as actively wielding an instrument of destruction.
And the list of what gets shattered is exhaustive.
It really is. Nations, kingdoms, then it breaks it down. Horse and rider, chariot and driver, man and woman, old man and youth, young man and maiden, shepherd and flock, farmer and oxen, governors and officials.
Wow. What does listing everything like that tell us?
It just hammers home the absolute totality of it. It's not just the army or the leaders getting hit. It's every single part of Babylonian society.
Every level, every role.
From the soldier to the farmer, the ruler to the young girl, all shattered by God's weapon. It's complete societal collapse, orchestrated by God. And why? Again, repay Babylon for all the wrong they have done in Zion. The scale of the punishment fits the scale of the crime.
So the prophecy doesn't just look at it from the outside. It also touches on what it's like inside for the people involved.
Right. We get glimpses of both the Babylonians and the captives. Initially, the Babylonians are described almost like predators.
Roaring like lions, growling like cubs.
Yeah.
Arrogant, dominant.
Yeah. But the prophecy flips it. God says he'll make them drunk, they'll sleep forever and not awake, brought down like lambs to the slaughter.
From roaring lions to helpless lambs sleeping forever. That's quite a reversal.
It is. Their strength, their aggression, completely nullified. They become passive victims, led unresistingly. It's a powerful image of divine power just overwhelming their might.
And then you hear the voices of the oppressed. The people of Zion, Jerusalem, their cry is so raw.
It really is. They recount Nebuchadnezzar's actions. Devoured us, thrown us into confusion, made us an empty jar.
That image of being swallowed like a serpent and then spewed out, it's incredibly disturbing.
Captures the trauma, doesn't it? Invasion, exile, being left desolate. And their response is a direct plea for justice.
May the violence done to our flesh be upon Babylon. May our blood be on those who live in Babylonia. They want the scales balanced.
And the text shows God answering that plea directly. I will defend your cause and avenge you. It's specific vindication.
And part of that involves cutting off Babylon's resources. Dry up her sea, make her springs dry.
Yeah, that could be literal, the Euphrates, the canals, vital for Babylon, or maybe metaphorical sources of wealth, power. Either way, it's cutting off their lifeline.
And then the prophecy describes the actual fall. News starts coming in.
Courier after courier, messenger after messenger. The city is captured. It's happening.
And the final state.
A heap of ruins, a haunt of jackals, an object of horror and scorn, a place where no one lives, a wasteland, a warning.
But for those who suffered under Babylon, the reaction is totally different.
Completely. Heaven and earth and all that in them will shout for joy over Babylon. It's presented as this huge cosmic event, universal relief that this tyranny is over.
Given this certain destruction, there's a really crucial instruction for God's people still living there.
A direct, urgent command. Flee from Babylon. Run for your lives. Come out of her, my people. Run from the fierce anger of the Lord.
Get out while you still can. Physical and spiritual separation.
Absolutely. Necessary for survival. And linked to that, advice for navigating the chaos leading up to it.
Right. Don't panic about the rumors.
Yeah. Do not lose heart or be afraid when rumors are heard. One rumor this year, another the next. Rumors of violence, ruler against ruler.
It acknowledges the fear and confusion will be intense.
But the instruction is, don't get swept up in it. Stay focused on God's declared outcome and the need to escape.
And for those who do get out, what then?
The instruction is clear. Leave and do not linger. And once they're safe in a distant land, they must remember the Lord and think on Jerusalem.
So it's not just physical escape. It's about holding on to their identity, their hope.
Exactly. Even scattered in exile, their focus should remain on God and the eventual restoration of their home, faith and endurance, even when displaced.
The prophecy doesn't ignore their current suffering, though. It acknowledges the shame.
Right. We are disgraced, insulted. Shame covers our faces because foreigners have entered the holy places of the Lord's house. They remember the trauma, the desecration of the temple.
But the prophecy uses that memory.
To highlight the coming reversal, Babylon's moment of triumph, that very act of desecration, will be met with its own irreversible shame and ruin. God balances the scales.
And the chapter finishes with this very specific historical detail. Jeremiah gives the whole message written on a scroll.
To Sariah, who's actually traveling to Babylon with King Zedekiah.
Wow. So this message of doom was physically carried right into the city before it fell.
Seems so. And Sariah's job wasn't just delivery. He had to read it aloud in Babylon, declaring God's intent to destroy it right there.
Let's talk about a bold move.
And then the final powerful symbol.
Tying a stone to the scroll.
After reading it, yes.
Yeah.
And throwing it into the Euphrates River, the lifeblood of Babylon.
What did that signify?
As he threw it, he declared, "So will Babylon sink to rise no more because of the disaster I will bring upon her, and her people will fall." The scroll sinking, pulled down by the stone. It's a physical enactment of Babylon's irreversible fate. Sinking, gone forever.
And then the final words of the chapter, the words of Jeremiah end here.
Kind of puts a full stop on this whole section about Babylon. A definitive end to these powerful pronouncements.
So, pulling it all together, Jeremiah 51 paints this incredibly vivid, detailed, and absolutely certain picture of Babylon's end. Total destruction as divine payback.
Payback for their pride, their sins, and especially how they treated God's people and his temple. The imagery used throughout is just designed to impress upon you the scale and finality of it all.
The gold cup, the burned out mountain, the locust swarm, the war club.
The useless idols versus the creator God. It's a complete vision of judgment hitting every part of the empire.
But woven through it is that message of hope and vindication for the victims. The call to escape, remember who you are, where your true home is. It's a total reversal of
It
fortunes.
really is God acting decisively in history, answering the cries of his people, defending their cause.
This deep dive into Jeremiah 51 really leaves you thinking, especially about the power given to words, to prophecy, and these symbolic acts.
Like throwing the scroll in the river.
Exactly. What does it mean that reading words aloud and then performing this symbolic act, throwing a weighted scroll into a river, is presented as carrying such definitive weight? Declaring Babylon will sink to rise no more. It makes you wonder, doesn't it, about the nature of declared destiny or the sheer weight of consequence described here, and maybe even the potential power in our own words or actions when they align with something bigger.
Definitely something to mull over.